Augustine Gus Washington was the father of the first U.S. President George Washington. He belonged to the colony of Virginia's landed gentry and was a planter and slaveholder family. Augustine Washington was born in Westmoreland, County, colony of Virginia, on November 12, 1694. He was a son of Lawrence Washington, a militia captain and a member of the Virginia House of Burgesses, and Mildred Warner. His paternal grandparents were John Washington and his first wife, Anne Pope. His paternal uncle was John Washington, II, and his paternal aunt was Anne Washington. Life. Born in 1694, Augustine was only 4 years old when his father died. He inherited about 1,000 acres on Bridges Creek in Westmoreland County. His sister Mildred inherited what was called the Little Hunting Creek property. They both inherited slaves. When Washington came of age in 1715, he married Jane Butler, an orphan who had inherited about 640 acres from her father. The young couple settled on the Bridges Creek property. Washington was active in the Anglican Church and in local politics. He took the oath as Justice of the Peace for the county court in July 1716, and served as county sheriff. In 1718, Washington purchased land on Pope's Creek, abridging his property on Bridges Creek. About 1726, he had a new house built there. In the same year, he purchased the Little Hunting Creek property from his sister Mildred. Washington and his first wife, Jane Butler, had 3 children, only 2 of whom lived to adulthood. In 1725, Augustine entered into an agreement with the Principio Company of England to start an ironworks on Augustine Creek in Stafford County. After Jane's death in 1730, Washington married Mary Ball in 1731, and in 1735, the family moved to the Little Hunting Creek property, which was closer to the Augustine furnace. In 1738, Augustine Washington purchased the 150-acre Strother property across the Rappahannock River and moved the family there at the end of that same year. Legacy. After Washington's death in 1743 at the age of 48, his son George inherited the former Strother property and its slaves. As he was only 11 years old, his mother Mary managed the property for him until he came of age. She lived on the property until 1772 when she was 64. George moved her to a house in Fredericksburg. Lawrence inherited the Little Hunting Creek property and renamed his property Mount Vernon, in honor of Admiral Edward Vernon, with whom he had served in the British Navy in 1741 during the Battle of Cartagena de Indias during the War of Jenkins' Ear. Augustine, Jr., inherited the Pope's Creek property and slaves. At his death, Augustine Washington, Sr., held a total of 64 slaves who were assigned among the various plantations. According to Augustine's will, if Lawrence died without children, the Little Hunting Creek property would be given to Augustine, Jr. He would then have to give Pope's Creek to George. If Augustine, Jr., did not want the Little Hunting Creek property, it would be inherited by George. Lawrence had no living children when he died, and Augustine, Jr., did not want to give up Pope's Creek. Therefore, George Washington ultimately inherited the Little Hunting Creek property. Lawrence Washington's widow Anne had a life interest in the Little Hunting Creek plantation. As she remarried and was not living at Mount Vernon, she leased the property to George beginning in 1754. Upon her death in 1761, George Washington inherited the plantation outright. Children: Butler Washington, Lawrence Washington, Augustine Washington, Jr., Jane Washington. Children: George Washington, Betty Washington Lewis, Samuel Washington, John Augustine Washington, Charles Washington, Mildred Washington.